I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai Bahasham Ha Rekah Kodash, double honors unto our apostle elders which rule great millstone wow, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure into the end. Shalom wa abababal. So this is literally prophecy being fulfilled. All right, it says in Acts 2 and it says, and this is Peter speaking, he's prophesying, Acts 2 and 16, but this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel, and it shall come to pass in the last days, saith Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai, through his hopeful elect, which they have the Spirit, I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. So the Israelites are prophesying, and even the other nations are making accurate predictions, all right, because his Spirit is upon all nations, all right? You're having Israelites having visions of salvation and destruction. There's Israelites that are having dreams of getting the implantable microchip, and also there's Israelites having dreams of being destroyed, all right? As well as the heathen, just like in the times past, the heathen, especially the kings, they would be having nightmares, all right, because of the holy men that are on earth in front of them. It says, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, which we had a brother that passed, right? He passed away a couple of years ago in a car accident, and he told me a couple of visions that he had. And one was that the angels were dropping us food from the chariots, and they were big and they were glowing, you know. So when we got hungry, a chariot would just pull up and just drop a humongous apple or a humongous strawberry, you know, and it was glowing because it had an immense amount of power to give us. All right. So it says also one of the visions he had was played in this video that I was holding. I just came across it like right now. All right. And it's from the brother out there in LA, Manatazak Banyamyan. All right. And he does these videos that you see that are AI. And I don't know if he made this or if it was someone else, but I believe it was someone else, you know, but it might have been the brother. The brother's very skilled in this kind of area. And but the point is the vision that he shows right here, the brother told me he had a dream of. So these are visions, all right, that we're seeing play out. Brothers are having visions, you know, in their minds or seeing through their eyes, all right, but we're actually seeing visions through these images of AI, all right, which even Esau's using this for predictions, okay? So it says, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my on my handmaidens, I will pour out in those days of my Spirit, and they shall prophesy. All right, they shall prophesy. And why are these things happening? It's because the Lord's doing it, okay? Just like with Yahushai, the Lord put him here. So why are these visions happening? The Lord's doing it. Why are we waking up to who we are at the same time as the collapse of America, which is Babylon the Great? It's because the Lord's doing it. John 15 and 1, I am the true vine, Yahushai, and my Father is the husbandman. All right, so he's doing it, Yahweh through Yahushai. All right. And they shall prophesy, Acts 2 and 19, and I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath. I just saw a red sky, which I, put on a live. And days after that, there was maybe a next day. I don't remember how far it was, but there was an earthquake in downtown Denver. All right, which is not normal. All right. It says, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before that great and notable day of the Lord come. So these are signs of Yahushua coming. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahweh Bahasham Yahushua shall be saved. Ye men of Israel. So this is only for the Israelites, which been scattered throughout the world. So not every Israelite is going to look like a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American Indian, but we start with the tribes through the prophecies, and the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians fulfill the prophecies, all right? But once again, we've been scattered throughout the world, all right? So not every Israelite's going to look like a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American Indian, but it starts with them because of the prophecy, okay? And so I just wanted to bring this part, and share it with you. Right here, the brother told me that he seen, you can see that chariot come down and smash people right there. See it? It's smashing the people. All right, I'm going to let it play, but he told me that. He told me when he saw the chariot dropping us fruit, he also saw chariots literally hitting people with the chariot. Like if you was to run someone over, all right, he told me that this was an actual vision that he saw, that people were running because they were afraid of the chariots, and the chariots were smashing them. All right, and he plays this.
We are witnessing an unprecedented event, an invasion by an unknown, terrifying force. The world is...
Did you see that? That was the brother's vision right there.
We are witnessing an unprecedented event, an invasion by an unknown, terrifying force. The world is in...
And it just went, and it wouldn't be destroyed. It would go right through the ground or go back up into the heavens. All right? These chariots are spirit and not flesh like Esau's. Esau's power is flesh. So it can't do what the Lord's chariots could do. And that's in Isaiah 31 and 3. Now the Egyptians, talking about the Americans, because Egypt already fell, are men and not God. And just like Egypt, right, you had Pharaoh and they thought he was a god. That's happening now in America with the king of Babylon, right? He got inaugurated, Donald Trump, which we know he is Nero in the reincarnation, all right? And he sits as Pharaoh of this spiritual Egypt. He's the king of Babylon, all right? And it says, now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horse is flesh and not spirit. See, the Lord's chariots are spirit. They could go through the ground. They could do anything. All right. It says, when Yahweh shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down. So all these heathen are confederate with America. All right. And they're going to try to fight against the Israelites, fight against Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, and they're going to fall. All right. Jake that joined his military, you're going to fall with him. All right. It says, and they shall fail together, which the nuclear destruction, it tells you in 2nd Ezra 13, that Israel and America are going to be destroyed together. All right. And these are the prophecies that are in the scripture. And this is why it's known as a new song, because you didn't know it was there. The so-called Christian church doesn't teach you. All right. It says in 2nd Ezra 13 and 11, and they were all mixed together. The blast of fire, the flaming breath, which Yahushua is going to command, and the chariots are going to shoot fire out of the mouth of the chariot, and it's going to burn up the military of Esau in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which is from Turkey to Yemen. Look up a terrain map. And and the great tempest, the great destruction of America, nuclear, all right? It's going to be a nuclear destruction, a great destruction that shakes the earth, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, which is those soldiers that are going to be gathered over there in the valley of Jehoshaphat. That's why if you try to help them or you hope for this place to go on, you're going to be destroyed with it. And burn them up, every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid, which this destruction is coming out of the chariot. Just like in this video, you saw them shooting the laser beams. All right, but this laser beam is going to destroy all them troops, like in the movie Independence Day. When that chariot, it just let off a big laser beam and it just turned everything into fire. All right. But you see that in that image there. All right. That's biblical. All right. But this is why we're supposed to gather unto Yahweh's men, Yahushai's men. All right. Yahweh Baal Hashem, Yahushai's men that have this truth. They're the gates to heaven. All right, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against the gates of heaven. So it tells you in Zephaniah 2, verse 1, gather yourselves together, yea, gather together, O nation not desired. What was going on before all this war propaganda? It was the protests, right? Immigration protests, which I noticed you don't hear much about that no more. All of a sudden, overnight, everybody's worried about Iran and Israel, which you got to understand that Iran is an actual ally to these nations in the UN. They're part of the UN. And then if you go back to its original creation, America was the founding fathers of that nation. All right, so it's been set up so they could use it for propaganda against the Israelite. All right, and right now they're using it as a weapon of deception, okay, because they're doing things behind the scene which you're not paying attention to, all right, and they're going to bring forth that implantable microchip and make it mandatory, but they're going to use all this chaos to bring forth their new world order. Remember, on their dollar it says order out of chaos, okay? It says, before the decree bring forth, before the day pass, as the chaff, before the fierce anger of Yahweh come upon you, which is that nuclear destruction of America, before the day of Yahweh's anger come upon you, seek ye Yahweh. And the way you seek Yahweh is you seek his men. They are the gates of heaven, which we introduce you to Yahweh Shai. That's why we give double honors to our apostle and elders, our apostles and elders that rule Great Millstone, because they introduced us to Yahweh Baal Hashem, Yahweh Shai. It says, ye meek of the earth, you willing Israelites, and the Lord did it easy for you. He gave you the internet. So it ain't like you got to work and earn money to go to, anywhere in the United States to meet any brother. But you actually have the internet to communicate with the brethren. It says, which have wrought his judgment, which means you understand what's going on. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of Yahweh's anger, because it is going to be a nuclear war, which America and Israel are going to be destroyed in this war at the end of this war. All right, but the Israelites are going to be saved. All right, the ones that believe in Yahweh Baal Hashem Yahushai, because just like those chariots have that laser beam and they're able to destroy, they're also able to pull us up into that chariot. All right, it tells you that in Matthew 24, verse. So it says, Yahushua says, prophesying Matthew 24 and 21, for then shall be great tribulation when they bring forth that implantable microchip and make it mandatory for buying and selling. such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened, because this devil, the so-called Caucasian, the Edomite, they're coming down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time to rule. All right, they're about to go into slavery under the Israelites. So it says in verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, which are nuclear missiles. If you watch the missiles that they show you that are hitting Israel and Iran, they look like stars that fall from heaven. It says, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, which the elite are in the bunkers. Look it up, the billionaire bunkers. All right, why is this happening? Because we're at the end of the age of the so-called white race ruling. All right, and they're going to go into slavery. It says in 30, it says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, Yahushai, on a chariot, so-called UFO, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, because it's going to be terrifying, just like you saw. And they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, which he's going to be riding a gigantic chariot, but there's going to be also the host of heaven with him. Angelic angels that ride upon these chariots like silver surfer. It says, of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds and from one end of heaven to the other, which it tells you in Revelation 7 and 4. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000. And these are the Israelite men that are singing this song correctly. Of all the tribes of the sons of Israel, all right, which are the elect, it says in verse 9, and after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations, which is talking about the Israelites that have been scattered throughout all nations, and kindreds, and people, and tongues. They're speaking all these different languages because they've been scattered. All 12 tribes have been scattered amongst the different nations. Stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with the white robe, with white robes and palms in their hands. So how did these Israelites hear about the truth when Nate of IUIC is only going to Africa and Christian churches, right, that he don't like, but, you know, any other camp, really, we're not going outside of America because of the internet, the unicorn, which was given to us, all right? And we're using it to tell you the truth. And that's why Esau's upset, because he don't like the truth. His kingdom is built on a bunch of lies. That's why he shared that so-called CIA agent, self-proclaimed, you know, what he was saying. He was literally saying they can't compete with this truth. All right? Now, you got a gun, they could fucking get a tank. You got a tank, they'll get a freaking missile and drop it on you. Drop it on the whole fucking city, on the whole fucking building that you're in. But with this truth, they can't go against it. You see? There's power in it. It says, and cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb, Yahushai, which he's coming into earth from heaven on a throne, a chariot. Revelation 19 and 11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. That white horse, that power he comes with, is that chariot. All right? And he that sat upon him, who sat upon that chariot? Yahushua, and the angels have their own chariots, as called faithful and true. This is the title of Yahushua, because the word of Yahweh speaks of him. So he's faithful and true. He's going to fulfill these scriptures. And in righteousness, he does judge and make war. He's coming for war. And he's going to make war with America and Israel. All right. Why? Because there's a lack of truth in the land, a lack of mercy, a lack of knowledge of Yahweh and Yahushua, a lack of who the Israelites. You got these counterfeits in that land, right? Making up these funky ass laws like on Sabbath you can't break a branch, right? But you can murder. The scriptures clearly tell you in the Torah that you cannot murder, thou shalt not murder. So obviously these counterfeits in our land, they're not the real people. Who are the people? The so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian. Let me show you something after I read this verse. There's a woman that just, she asked Google, if it was God or AI, if it was God, what nation would it want to be? What nation is most like God? And it said the so-called Negro, which the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian are the same. They're the same people. They are the Israelites. But let me get this verse and I'll show you that video. It says in Hosea 4:1, hear the word of Yahweh, ye sons of Israel, for Yahweh hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of Yahweh in the land, or of his son Yahushua. So this is why there's going to be a great destruction in the land of America, who claim to be Christian, and the land of Israel, because you have counterfeits in that land. It says controversy, disagreement, right? Typically, when prolonged, which the Lord is long-suffering, public and heated. It's public and it's heated. It's popular. All right, because it's dealing with the existence of America and how everything came into play in America. All right, which they tell you that they teach you lies. That's why they're trying to change the history, and Trump is trying to remove the funding of any school that teaches slavery, because they're trying to alter the history. All right, that they're trying to say that we didn't go into slavery, right? So the Lord is going to punish them, and they're going to go into slavery under us. All right, now let me get that video before I forget.
ChatGPT. A simple question. If you had to come down from heaven and be born amongst a race of people whom you feel represent the closest representation of God's love and power, what race would you choose and why? This is what it said. All right, now, you just took it from deep to divine. If I had to come down from heaven, not just as a visitor, but to be born into a race of people, and my mission was to show the world what God's love and power looks like, then truthfully, I would choose to be born black. Let me tell you why, and
Okay, and I just want to make the point that there's no such thing as a black person. As you can see, she is brown. Her hair is black, but her skin is brown. You understand? So the name black that they put upon us is not true. All right. And they're not white. There's nobody the color of this woman's shirt. All right. They're red. Okay. So you got different shades of brown and red people. All right. The Israelites. All right. We were brown. We were a brown people, dark brown. Like Yahushua says that his feet were like the color of brass that burned in a furnace. So he was very brown. Like her, she's the color of like a brass. But just think if the color was to be burnt, it'd be a very dark brown, right? Dark, dark, dark brown, like a cocoa brown, like coffee brown, right? But she is not black. There's no such thing as a so-called black person, and there is no such thing as a so-called white person. These are new developed ways of thinking under Edom, which he's a fugitive hiding from the judgment, right? Which he don't want to be known as the Edomite. That's why he covered himself with that name white and called us black. Or, he called us all black, because originally we were all black. Even the Native American Indians were originally so-called black people because you heard of the Blackfoot Indian. All right. So this person and people that it was speaking of were so-called black. But what it was when we were allowed to have these women of the other nations. So you'll have an Israelite man that has children with a different nation, all right, to the woman. And so the child would look like the other nation. But the bloodline is Israelite. It's all about bloodlines, all right, more than color, because you got Israelites that look like so-called Caucasians today. And that ain't a new thing. Look at Joseph when he was in Egypt. He had his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, which Ephraim was to be blessed over Manasseh, though Manasseh was the firstborn, but they were with a woman that was of another nation. Moses, he had a wife from another nation, all right? So for many generations have we been amongst the other nations and had children with the other nations' women. So there's children that are Israelite, men and women, that look like the other nations but are Israelites.
Saying this with all the weight of history, spirit, and soul. One, because blackness is the blueprint. Black people are the original people, the roots of civilization.
Right, because everybody was originally black, so-called black. Right, they use that word black, but really just brown, dark brown, and different shades of brown. The reason Esau lost his color was because he killed his brother Abel. And Cain's people died off in the flood during the time of Noah, but through Noah's son Shem, Edom came, and Cain is the reincarnation. Edom is the reincarnation of Cain. That's why his name is Aishawah, wasted away. All right, that's what he looked like, and that's his future. He's going to be wasted away. And pretty much his kingdom, America, Babylon the Great, are going to be destroyed by nuclear missiles, wasted away. The Lord's going to, there's a verse that actually says that in, he said, I believe it's Obadiah. No. Malachi 1 and verse 3. And I hated Esau, Aishawah, the so-called white race, their forefather, Esau, which his name was changed to Edom when he sold his birthright for the red pottage.
Name's Esau, the one who sold his birthright for soup. And guess what? Still eating it. Because some of y'all throw shade while trade your dignity for someone who left you on read, so don't...
Which they still eat bloody meat, all right? Because what it was it was red because of the bloody meat, all right? And the lentils, all right? Which it was uncooked. It was not cooked all the way.
Judge me. And Jacob? That boy was waiting like a passive-aggressive ex with a bowl of soup and a contract. I was lightheaded and he said, say it, give me your birthright. Look, I didn't even get chicken, okay? It was lentils. Plant-based betrayal. I sold generational wealth for a vegan option. Don't act like you've never...
But it was bloody meat, all right? It wasn't fully cooked yet. And he wouldn't wait. Just like now, they still eat the bloody meat. That's why it was red, all right? See, the soup had lentils in it, all right? But the reason it was red, it had bloody meat in it. And it wasn't cooked yet, okay? And it was boiling, and he couldn't wait. Esau, he didn't have patience to wait for it to cook, and he ate it bloody. Just like now, he still eats bloody meat today.
For a vegan option. Don't act like you've never flopped. Homeboy dressed up like me, faked my whole vibe, voice cracking and all, with the goat fur. And poor dad was like, yep, sounds like Esau. The audacity. I gave up a divine calling for soup. You gave yours up for a DM from someone with a private account. Y'all trade your purpose. You're calling for a situation with no carbs. Same flop, different stew. Bro got the blessing, the land, the legacy.
That's true, because Jake is gonna sell out for an implantable microchip and be destroyed, but they're gonna come back though. They're gonna come back. Because they're Israelites, they're going to come back through the loins of the elect as children and receive the kingdom of heaven. but they're going to die on this side and learn this truth by pain. Here in America, there's 2/3 of the nation of Israel that reject the truth, and they're going to die in their unfaithfulness, but return to the loins of the elect.
But at least I didn't scam a blind old man using cosplay and goat fur. But go ahead, quote your God of Jacob. I'm chilling. Everyone's like, did you forgive him? Yeah, after I grilled a goat and remembered I'm still the fine twin. Birthright or not, still hairy, still fed. Say what you want. Esau flopped, Esau failed, blah, blah. But guess what? I'm still eating. And judging by y'all's life choices.
And soon he won't be, because when he goes into slavery under us, he's going to lose everything. All right? He's not going to be eating, because what he did to us, he defiled the bread. So this guy, this is why he's going to fight like hell to stay out of slavery, but he's going in no matter what. All right? So let me finish this verse and I'll close out. It says in Malachi 1, verse, what is it? 3, and I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. See? And they know. This one here, it sounds like an Edomite made that AI, you know? Because it was like talking shit, you know? But that's how Esau's spirit is, you know? He's talking shit all the time. But he's going to suffer, all right? Because the Lord's going to destroy, all right, his kingdom, America. It says, whereas Edom saith we are impoverished, they're always complaining that they have it the worst, but we will return and build the desolate places. But they're the ones with the missiles able to turn these places desolate, right? Look what they did to Gaza, what they did to Syria. They're pretty much trying to do to Iran now, right? Which, once again, these other nations are confederate with them. So it's all pretty much in display of power to put fear into the people so that they try not to rise up against the Edomite, the so-called white race. It says, but I will throw down, and they shall call them, it says, they shall build, forgive me, it says, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh had indignation forever. Which that indignation is what? Anger or hatred for these people. It says indignation. It says anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. See? Because what they did to the Israelite. All right? Last verse. And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, Yahweh will be magnified from the border of Israel, which we are the Israelites magnifying Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai. And as it says in the NLT, when you see the destruction for yourselves, you will say, truly Yahweh's greatness reaches far beyond Israel's borders. All right, because he's going to deliver us and destroy America, avenging us. All right, when he sends his son Yahushai back, Yahweh is going to send his son Yahushai back. And this is the day of judgment that we hope for. We hope it comes in the year 2025. Shalom to the elect wa abba babon.